VOO recently became the first ETF ever to pass $1 trillion in assets, roughly 500 companies, broadly diversified across the entire U.S. economy. That's what most people believe when they buy it. But here's what nobody shows you. When you put $1,000 into VOO today, roughly 356 of those dollars flow into just 7 companies, 7 out of 500. They're not all classified in the same sector, but they are heavily tied to the same mega-cap technology, AI, cloud, semiconductor, and digital advertising trade. The S&P 500 you think you own and the S&P 500 you actually own are becoming two very different things, and that gap is getting wider every year. My name is Marcus. Today, I'm breaking down how concentrated VOO has quietly become, what that means when things go wrong, and whether you should actually be worried about it. Subscribe and give this a thumbs up. Let's get into it. First, what VOO actually looks like today. VOO tracks roughly 500 leading U.S. companies, but it's market cap weighted, so the biggest companies receive the biggest allocations. The top 10 positions make up about 39% of the entire fund. That means roughly 4 out of every $10 you invest go into just 10 companies. The other 500 or so split the remaining $6. And it gets more concentrated than that. The top 3, Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft, make up about 20% combined. That's a fifth of your diversified portfolio sitting in 3 companies. Information technology alone represented about 39% of VOO in Vanguard's latest sector report, more than financial services, healthcare, and energy. When most people hear 500 companies, they picture broad, even exposure. The reality is far more lopsided than they expect. How VOO got here. The shift nobody noticed. This level of concentration didn't happen overnight. It crept in gradually, which is exactly why most investors haven't noticed. When VOO launched back in 2010, the top 10 companies in the S&P 500 represented roughly 1/5 of the index. Today, they make up close to 2/5. The leadership has shifted dramatically toward mega-cap platform, semiconductor, and software companies. This didn't happen because Vanguard made a decision. VOO is market cap weighted. It simply mirrors the S&P 500. As tech companies grew enormous, their weight in the index grew with them, automatically. But the result is the same. The fund most people buy for broad diversification is now concentrated at a level investors haven't seen since the mid-1960s. Why this matters when things go wrong. Concentration works beautifully on the way up. In 2023 and 2024, mega-cap technology and AI-related companies drove an outsized share of the S&P 500's gains. In 2025, those companies remained important, but market leadership became less one-dimensional. During that stretch, VOO investors benefited enormously from the tech concentration at the top. But concentration cuts both ways. In 2022, VOO fell about 18% on a total return basis. That wasn't proof that diversification failed. It was a broad U.S. stock market bear market. Diversification lowers single stock risk, but it can't prevent losses when much of the market declines together. Still, concentration mattered. The equal weight S&P 500, which gives every company roughly the same weight, outperformed the regular cap-weighted S&P 500 by about 7 percentage points that year as mega-cap growth stocks struggled. Equal weight has a different profile, a smaller cap, value-leaning tilt, so it's not simply better diversification, but it shows how much VOO's performance hinges on what happens at the very top of the fund. The point isn't that VOO is broken. It's that the diversification isn't as broad as the headline number suggests. But here's what keeps things in perspective. Even with this concentration, VOO has delivered outstanding long-term returns. Over the 10 years ended March 2026, VOO delivered a roughly 14% annualized return after expenses. That concentration in fast-growing technology companies was a major driver of those returns. So concentration is a double-edged sword. It magnified the gains on the way up. It will magnify the losses on the way down. And neither of those changes the fact that VOO remains one of the lowest cost, most liquid, and most broadly held funds on Earth. The question isn't whether VOO is good. It clearly is. The question is whether you understand what you actually own and whether you're comfortable with that level of mega-cap tech exposure. So should you be worried? Here's the honest answer. Worried? Probably not. Aware? Absolutely. VOO has not become a technology fund in the official sense. It's still a low-cost S&P 500 fund, but it is far more dependent on a small group of mega-cap technology and technology-adjacent companies than most investors realize. For investors who are comfortable with that concentration and believe those companies will continue to grow, VOO alone may be all they need. Investors who want less dependence on mega-cap U.S. growth can consider different exposures, such as international stocks, small caps, value, or equal weight, but each comes with its own trade-offs and can lag VOO for years. The key takeaway is simple. Knowing what you own matters more than just owning something popular. 500 companies sounds diversified. Around 39% in the top 10 positions tells a more complete story. Both of those things are true at the same time. VOO is an excellent investment, but the set it and forget it approach works best when you actually understand what you've set. And right now, what you've set is concentrated at a level investors haven't seen in over half a century. If this helped you, hit that thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people find this. And let me know in the comments, do you still see VOO as fully diversified or as a mega-cap tech fund wearing a 500 company label? I'm curious where you stand. Subscribe for more informative video, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep it simple.